One. Welcome everybody to the
What up?
podcast number 33. And on today's episode, guys, we have my big brother Brian Boudro in his house.
What's up?
John Pep.
What's happening? Before we get this started, this might be the only Boudro with bigger arms than Ben. Just want to point that out. Sorry, Ben.
Keyword is might, so you can put him over. This is the beauty of video right now, so go ahead. You can't really tell with this.
That's hard to see with that background. Oh, wow.
Let's do it now. Let's just have, yeah, just so you know. Just so you know, that's how we're doing on this podcast. I'm not going to mess with it.
First time a shirt's come off. All right.
To get bigger arms than him, so I better not get it. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. But it's Xceleration Fitness Podcast. There's no rules. So on today's episode, guys, we're going to talk about my big brother, Brian. He is currently a trainer / owner / creator of Boudo Bootcamps. And he runs that at Lowell, Michigan, which is on the west side of the state. My three brothers all live in Grand Rapids / Lowell area. And he runs a boot camp. He does body transformation challenges. He's done personal training for a long time now. He really is the guy that got me started in personal training. In training, honestly, guys, in general. My first workouts were upstairs. My dad's third story. We had a weight room there with one barbell, a dumbbell that you could adjust to make heavier. That's really all we had, and we did 3 summers in a row of just that. But that's really where the birth of my fitness career started, and it's all because of this guy right here. So we'll get into depth on his wrestling career. He was also a All-American at, what was it? Gloucester, which is in New York?
It's in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, All-American wrestler, and now owner of Boudo Bootcamps. So, John Pep, before I go into Brian's story, do you have anything to share about this week?
Not much, man. I don't know what you're getting at there. Should I have something to share?
No, you're
Okay.
What's going on with John Pep?
Not much, man. Same old, training about 9 weeks out or 8 weeks out from powerlifting meet. So, ramping that training up and full steam ahead.
All right, before we start this too, big shout out to Nick Parcelletti. He's going to Toronto Hall for his bodybuilding show. So good luck to him. But hey, let's get right into it. So Brian,
do it.
How did you get started with fitness?
Let's see. I actually did not start lifting weights until I got to college in New York for wrestling because they forced me to. You started probably lifting before any of us because you went to Anchor Bay and they had a program. We went to Armada first, a smaller school, and lifting wasn't really big at all. I didn't even know anything about lifting. All I did was just wrestle my whole life. So when I got to college and we were forced to go into the weight room, I hated it at first because it was just all I wanted to do was wrestle. Honestly, what happened to me is I remember I came home for this guy's grad party in the summer after my first year away in college. And I remember I came home and I didn't realize that my body started transforming a little bit from lifting. I just remember hearing everybody say stuff to me like, what the hell you been doing, man? What are you on? What are you taking? Or whatever. I was wearing a tank top at the time, and I was like, what the hell? I started looking at myself, and I started getting a little like, okay. Kind of got a little bit into it like that, almost like, kind of a little douchey, but I kind of got into myself with that. I was like, okay. So I started lifting more. And then I just really got into it where it was kind of addicting, but I wanted to learn more about lifting. So I started going at it like hard. And that's when him and I started training like in the summers. And I kind of started training him just up in the 3rd floor of my dad's house, whatever we could do. But I was like so into it, and I was always online, always reading, learning, trying new things. But that's how I kind of really got started. And then my last couple years of college, I started really like working with some of my teammates, and I would start training them. I wasn't certified or anything, but I would train them in the off season. They work out with me, and I just fell in love with it. And I didn't know what I was going to do outside of college with that. I started working in a nutrition store in Lansing. I thought it would be because it was kind of in the same realm of workouts and stuff like that. I thought that would be good enough, but it wasn't. I was in the store all the time. All I wanted to do was be in the gym working with people. People would tell me, like, hey, I'm going to the gym right now, and I'd just be so jealous. So I left that job, and I knew training is what my passion was, what I wanted to do. Like, I know 100% that this is what I want to do, it's what I'm meant to do. So I took the risk, quit the job, got certified, and started training ever since. And I love every day at work. It's nothing better for me. I just love working with people. helping them out, pushing them. And I definitely have my philosophies with training. I'm not the same as everybody else, but I also like that too. It lets me be myself. So
I'm curious, what are some of those kind of like underlying philosophies that, that are different?
I'm really, really big into mental toughness, and I'm not only just talked about it. I've seen so many guys' podcasts. I'm huge into it, and it's more personal for me with wrestling and athletics. So in wrestling, if you've never wrestled, you can't. It's kind of hard to understand, but in sports in general, mental stuff is huge. With performance, you could have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have it up here, it doesn't really translate on the field. And wrestling being on one sport, you're out there by yourself. I always say I struggled with confidence my entire life, like big time. It was horrible. It was like a nightmare in my head. And I hated it. And I never knew what to do in wrestling. And I didn't figure it out until I got out. Turning off those negative thoughts in your head and everything, telling you can't do it and holding yourself back. And I remember going on the mat sometimes I just freeze. I would lose the guys that I wasn't supposed to lose to. And it was all because up here. So that is really personal for me. And I still deal with it now, even on other things I do. I'm better equipped to deal with it now. But I don't want anybody else to deal with it. And I see people do it all the time. So mental toughness is probably my biggest thing that I work with people. And I'm always pushing them to do more than what they think they can do. Because everyone can do more than they think they can do. So that's my job, to convince them that and build that confidence and get them to push harder. That's why they're paying me. So
That's cool. So what would you say to someone maybe who does struggle with that, like, that they don't really believe in themselves? Like what helped, like kind of what changed for you where you started to get down that path where you did have more confidence? Like what are some things people can do?
I say this to everybody all the time. Consistency is key with anything. If you want to do anything and be successful, you have to be consistent. So, you got to start somewhere. You have to literally, when you have the moment, when you have that negative thought come in your head, you have to just say no, and you have to turn it off. You got to have literally conversations. You kind of sound crazy. I've had conversations with myself multiple times, and I know, but you have to do it because it has to start somewhere. So you start saying no and you force yourself to do the thing you think you can't. And it's going to feel really uncomfortable. It's going to feel awfully uncomfortable. And it's going to take a little while. It might take a couple weeks. It might take a couple months. It might take a year. But you have to consistently do it and use the motivation that you want to succeed. That's going to get you through it. And once you kind of get through that and you've done it enough where you turn it off and you say yes and you just force yourself to do it, then it becomes a habit. And then you start doing it without thinking. But consistency is the biggest thing I would tell somebody. You cannot quit when it gets hard. Once you get past that hard and that rough patch, that's when things will start to come in and it'll start, not saying necessarily easy, but it'll just be natural for you. Most people, the problem is they just get to that hard part when the motivation kind of starts to run a little thin and they quit and they look for another avenue. And then they go through the same thing with that when you just got to stick to what you're doing and do it consistency. I couldn't say any more than that. It's consistency.
Love it.
Yeah, to test that too, I'm reading this book right now. I keep talking about this book. I think I mentioned in the last 3 podcasts. It's called The One Thing. And really what it mentions is that people, when it comes to things that are hard, if you're not internally driven and you're driven by external forces, let's say you want to start a business, all right? Or let's say you want to start a fitness program. John, you can attest to this too. When people start fitness programs, some people join our body transformation challenges and we don't see them for another year because they do this, guys. They join a program, they start seeing results, then they hit this ceiling where it gets hard. And rather than go through that ceiling, they go like this and go down. I'm going to try to find something different. I'm going to go cycling. And then it just keeps going back and forth. And they keep hitting
cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle. But when you hit that plateau, like Brian said, you go consistent and you just get past that hard spot, that's when you have the life-changing results. That's when you have those sustainability that, your picture's up on the wall. That's what it is.
And I think to add to that too is, trusting the process and program, whatever program you're doing, whether it's the cycling or the boot camps or, personal training, whatever it is, trusting that process. Because kind of on that note, we've seen a lot of people they expect to lose, a tremendous amount of weight within the first, 3 weeks. And it's like, no, let's slow down here. This is a long-term process. It took a long time for you to get to where you're at now. So it's going to take a long time to reverse it. So let's trust the process and just stay with it.
Right. Exactly. Well, Brian, when it comes to fitness, if someone's going to come to Boudro Bootcamp, what is the first thing you do with them in Lowell? Like, how do you what's the process of that?
Usually with the boot camp, most everybody I've experienced with the boot camp in Lowell for me is most people are scared to join because they're intimidated or they just don't have any self-confidence in themselves. So they never show up. So my hardest job is just getting them in the door. And once they're in the door, I usually get them to stay. But I usually have a conversation with them the first day in there, and I kind of just break things down for them. Kind of let them know the layout and how it's going to go. But I tell them, you cannot judge and compare yourself to anybody. Because honestly, the boot camp has people of all levels because the workouts are all doable for anybody. And you can make them as hard or as easy as you want. I have my brother RJ, who's been on some of these podcasts, and they're high-level athletes. I have people who've never worked out before doing the same workouts, okay? So you go in, and as long as you're doing it whatever you can and pushing yourself, that's all you can do. That's all anyone can ask of you, and you're going to get a good workout out of that. So I just really try to put their nerves at ease, calm them down, get them through that first workout, show them that they can actually do it. And then once they kind of get through that and they kind of get that fear away, the anxiety is still going to be there a little bit, but they know they can do it and they'll start showing up more. But my hardest part with anything, I think for any gym, is just getting the people in the door. And once they're there, it is your job to kind of be there for them and give them that confidence to get through the workouts. And that's what I try to do for them because if anyone's watching now and they want to do a boot camp, don't be nervous. Just show up. You got to start somewhere. Everybody starts somewhere. We all started somewhere. We weren't always, in shape, lifting weights, doing this. We went in and we were a newbie and we had to learn. So you just got to get in the door and go. So whatever's holding you back, if it's something like confidence or just being nervous, just clear out the door and just show up and go. Just go.
Who is your influence when it comes to fitness? Maybe when you first got started or maybe now, like what books did you read or anything? It could be non-fitness related, but what are some things that people can read to really get inspired, to get motivated, to get past this mental block they got? To read? Yeah. So like if someone has a mental block, they're thinking about working out, think back to when you got started with fitness and you started getting in shape. What really?
Well, mine was really internal. I fought with myself all the time and I didn't know what to do. And I can't really narrow it down to anybody or anything. It really came down to me making that choice. I just got sick of it, But motivation-wise, is I saw other people doing things. Like I even use my family. I'm fortunate to have 3 great brothers. They're all in fitness and all doing well in life. They're doing great. And, it's like I use them as motivation for me to kind of push me through at the same time. But it comes down to making that decision yourself. Like you have to do it for yourself. You can use motivational videos on YouTube. They can kind of get you going a little bit, but it's ultimately going to come down to you making the choice to do it. And maybe you got to hit rock bottom. Maybe that's you. Maybe you got to hit rock bottom until you make that choice. I don't know. Everyone's different. But for me, I struggled with it for years, and I remember I just said enough's enough.
So talk about one of your struggles that you had like that you can remember. Maybe it's high school, maybe it's college, but what's the time where you struggled mentally?
The lowest point I had was in wrestling. I remember I was at a tournament in New York, and I literally broke in a match. Like I was so much better than this guy I was wrestling. I was beating him, and I don't even remember what the thought process was in my head, but I was beating him up so bad, and something in my head was telling me, like, you shouldn't be beating this guy like this right now. Like, you're not supposed to win this match. And me being as mentally weak as I was at the point, I started believing that. So I completely, if you watch the match on tape, you can see me like go from one speed and all of a sudden I'm like a completely different person. And then I totally shut down and I ended up losing the match. And I walked off the match, I remember, and everyone kind of looked at me like, what the hell was that? And I didn't know what to say. And I was like, I just completely gave up on myself. And I remember I walked in the locker room and that was it. I had enough. I was so broken and so pissed. And I just I had a lot of anger. I wanted to break everything. But once, my calmed down a little bit, I just told myself, like, it's not ever going to happen again. That was it. I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that was never going to happen again. And that was one of my lowest points with that stuff.
So what did you do from that moment on to conquer that?
That's when the consistency started. When you go into practice, because that stuff's contagious. When you start letting that stuff take over and you let it happen again and again and again, because it works the same way. If I'm consistently saying negative thoughts and doing these things, then it's consistently going to happen. I'm going to consistently break and quit on myself. So I remember I went to practice because I had that weekend off. I went to practice that next Monday, and I had a good team. There was good guys in the team, and I went up and I was wrestling somebody. And practice is usually where I had a lot of confidence, but it started like leaking over into that. So I had to really turn that off. And I remember I just went out and went for broke and had no fear of losing in practice, and I just started turning it on. And it wasn't easy. You know, that first day I had a little bit of nerves, but I caught myself and I started saying the most positive things, like once or twice in that practice. And the next day it was 2 or 3. And then after that, it just started to, snowball effect. And then it kind of went into everything else. But that was a really low point.
So how did you finish that year? That when you had that breakdown, what did that year end up being?
Well, I actually started wrestling better, but that year ended up got that rough patch. I ended up going. I was an All-American. We had a really good team. We ended up winning a national title as a team, which was awesome. That was awesome. But I remember actually I was at the national tournament. I wrestled a kid that I wrestled the year before at the same tournament, and he beat me at that tournament. And I wrestled him, and this would have been a point where normally, the old Brian mentally would have been out of the match before it even started because the kid already beat me. And I actually had that thought before the match. But I went out there, and I'm somebody who doesn't like to hear anyone talking to me. I don't want to hear you like before a match. Some people really get motivated when someone's telling them things. I need to block everybody out. I need to be alone with my thoughts. But I had that thought, and I was like 5 minutes for the match, and I remember thinking, like, what are you doing? Like, this is the national tournament. There's no need to whatever. Like, go out there. If you lose. But don't lose because of this. Lose because he's better than me. And I went out there, and I just kicked the shit out of him. And it felt great. But that, again, was another moment where it was like you prove to yourself that you can do it. And it was literally all up here. And, sports, fitness, whatever it is, it's here. All of it. It's so much. And that's why that's my philosophy. I'm so key on being mentally there and mentally tough and showing up. Because I'm telling you, if you can be strong up here, everything else will work.
It's awesome. I love it.
John, how often, this can – seriously, you guys might be listening to this podcast and be like, all right, this guy's talking about college wrestling. How the hell is it going to relate to me? Think of the day-to-day. How many times did you have an instance in your day where you thought you couldn't do something, but you did something? It happens every single day. So when it comes to fitness, a lot of males age 30 and up, they'll come to a workout. Maybe they haven't worked out in 2-3 years, and they feel like dog shit. They can't lift the weights they used to lift. They can't do the things they used to do. I think the biggest turn that I see people make is when they come to me and like, hey, I can't do what I used to be able to do. When I push sleds, I can't lift this weights. I can't do that. When people say that, then I know, like, all right, this guy's going to have success. Because when I lift with John Pat, we'll do squats one day, and John Pat will squat 4 plates on each side, and I won't come close to that, and I'm totally cool with it. But back in the day, I'm like, God, he's doing more than me. I'm comparing myself. I'm doing this. All these negative thoughts just kind of snowball, just like he said with the wrestling match. But once I turned it off, where I was like, I don't give a shit how much weight I'm doing. I'm doing what I can do for me. And once that happens, man, then it becomes consistent, gets easier to do, and more positive thoughts start flowing through your brain.
100%. And that, when you have to, there's no reason at all to compare yourself to, like, when there's 25 other people in the classes or group, whatever you want to call it, there's absolutely no reason to compare yourself to anyone else because everyone is at a completely different, point in their fitness journey, like point in their life. They're older, younger, previous injuries, all these things. So you never know, what this person did or didn't do, and there's absolutely no reason to compare yourself to them. You just have to focus on, showing up each day. That's the first part. And then being consistent with your effort as well. Because I know a lot of people say the biggest thing is showing up every day, but you also have to, when you are there, consistently put out the effort each day as well. Because, we've all seen people maybe show up, but they're not really there, so it's putting consistent effort, whatever that level of effort is for you, doing that every day.
Yes. I'm going to add on that. Only because you said that. I'm usually the guy who says, when people say showing up's half the battle, I hate that now. I call that bullshit.
Yeah.
No, showing up is not half the battle.
Yeah.
Show up and do absolutely nothing. I've seen people do it. They show up to workouts and they show up and it's more like they just want to be able to say, oh, I went to the gym today and they did this. Well, what'd you do when you were there? You know, what kind of effort did you put in? Don't
Exactly.
just be that person who shows up just to have the status of showing up and then go post about it online. Show up, work in. I can't stand those people.
Yeah.
Show up and put the work in and do it, you know? And that's my little spiel. I had to do what you said.
Yeah. If you show up to my gym, I'm happy. So that's I want to talk about one thing, because I know some people out there listening might be critical of what we're saying, because it is hard to control the thoughts in your brain. Some people, it's just different chemical makeups. I get that. But when it comes to chemical makeups, this past winter, my life changed by watching this guy speak. If you guys are watching this right now and you Google snowboarder head injury, all right, the first thing that's going to pop up is this Kevin Pierce guy. All right, I just did it 2 seconds ago. I was fortunate enough to meet Kevin Pierce. Kevin Pierce spoke at this conference, and he talked all about his brain injury that he had. Let me, long story short, Kevin Pierce was beating Shaun White in snowboarding in X Games. He was like the top of the top, this phenom snowboarder. I mean, the world in front of him. He had all the sponsors, everything. And in one practice, he tried this little backflip thing, whatever, and slammed on his head and almost died. I mean, he should be dead. And he had a head injury that caused him to not walk. He couldn't talk, do anything. He was just, completely done. And he talks about what he's doing now, because he struggles every single day with vision. He struggles with thoughts. And he showed this picture of the brain. And when you think positive thoughts in the brain, there's a lot of white spots that take over your brain. It's so strong. But when you think negative thoughts, little black dots so picture like a picture of a brain. And when you think negative thoughts, these little black dots happen. He called them ants. Automatic negative thoughts syndrome. So when you think negative, your brain's not that strong. But when you think positive, your brain's actually stronger. It actually takes over the emotion part of your brain. So if you could just do what he said, and consistent happy thoughts going through your brain, you might think, hey, I'm telling myself bullshit. But just doing that bullshit, you call it, causes more happy thoughts to come. It's very, very powerful if you practice it consistently.
Yeah, that's huge, yeah, because, there are, legitimate scientific studies that have shown, different areas of the brain to light up versus on the fMRIs versus, negative thoughts, and all correlated with, things that are going to make you successful at whatever you are doing. And kind of, I know for me personally, I kind of struggled with that in sports too. And, for me, I kind of learned over the years that what works for me is box breathing. So basically just breathe in deep 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, breathe out 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds, and then just repeat that cycle. And it's just deep breathing. That's all it is, right? But it brings more oxygen to the brain, helps everything kind of slow down, reset, activates your parasympathetic nervous system, and kind of brings everything down and kind of gets rid of that anxiety. And then, once that anxiety is gone, you realize, oh, okay, so it's really not that big of a deal, whatever you're, stressing about at the time. And each person has to find something that works for them, but there's lots of things that can work.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, John, I don't know if you're ready, but I'm ready for this, man. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. We're going to wrap up this podcast right now, guys, with the fire round on Brian Boudro. I'm really who he is. This is a question because I might get this tonight. Brian, can pineapples go on pizza?
No.
Thank you.
Don, no?
All right. If you could be in any 90s music group as a member of the band, group, whatever, who would you be?
Oh, man. You know what? I've watched these podcasts before. I should be better at this. I should have thought of this. All right. I don't know. I'm not going to say, this is going to sound weird. Don't judge me. I'm not in sync, but I am secretly a JT fan. So I would go in sync and then quit, leave him off to the side and beat Justin Timberlake. Yeah.
Okay.
Favorite cartoon character?
Ooh, favorite cartoon character. Gotta be. They don't even show us anymore, do they? I used to watch Animaniacs as a kid all the time.
They show Animaniacs.
Yeah. I don't remember the guy's name. One of the Animaniacs. There was 3 of them. The crazy one. Whatever his name is. I don't know his name.
Animaniacs.
Yeah.
All right, we'll kick that. All right. So if there was a movie made about your life, who would play it and why? Play you and why?
Who would play me? Crap. That's a good question. Who would play me? I'm going to say, you know what? I don't know why I keep thinking I didn't like him. I didn't like Channing Tatum played that in the wrestling movie. I didn't like him in that movie. Man, that would have been a bad one. Who would? Crap. Come back to me on that one. I don't know.
All right.
I thought of that.
Would you rather be? Would you rather taller or thinner?
Taller.
Least favorite exercise in the gym ever?
Least favorite exercise? Gotta be. I don't really have that many least favorite ones. What's a pointless exercise? What's a
Over 2 on these.
No. Let's see. Probably something with legs.
All right, if you could be an animal, which animal would you choose?
Tiger or monkey?
That was quick.
Yeah. No, I've thought about that one before. Tiger or monkey. I love that because they hump by themselves. You know, they don't need a team. And monkeys are just cool.
All right. Favorite quote?
Favorite quote? All right, I don't have one off the top of my – well, I'll say Kid Rock said it. It's not cocky if you back it up.
Okay.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
All right, I just got asked this recently. So chocolate chip cookie dough. If I'm on Mackinac Island, I always get Mackinac Island fudge. And I actually literally like chocolate mint too. Mint chocolate chip.
Okay. All right. In your prime, who would win in a wrestling match? You or Ben?
Hands down. Not even close. Not even
Confidence.
You answer the question seriously.
with his shirt off, right? Why would you even ask that? I mean, come on.
And next question, if you're asking me, which I'll just ask myself, he would probably like the first period would be like 10-2. He'd probably smoke me in the first period. Second period, he would relax. Third period, I would come back and beat overtime win because I'd gas him out.
Would never make it out of the first period.
All right. Most embarrassing moment of your life?
Oh, crap. Most embarrassing moment of my life. Man, I should have thought about these before. Hold on. Most embarrassing moment of my life? Oh, crap. You know, I had to give a speech one time in college, and I didn't know I had to give a speech. And I'm usually really good at just going up and winging it. But this was actually a math class, too. I don't know why you got a speech in math. But I had to give a speech, and I'm horrible at math. You really know me. I'm dumb when it comes to math. Basic math is hard for me. So I couldn't wing it because I didn't know what I was talking about. And I went up there, and it had to be a 5-minute speech, or I was going to fail the class. So I had to talk 5 minutes on – I don't even remember what I said. It was anything. And I remember everyone looking at me just, like, talking like it was bad. It was really bad. I was sweating bullets. That was pretty bad. I'm sure I've had more, but that one sank in.
All right, John, you're up.
All right. Favorite movie?
Pulp Fiction's one of them. If you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, you should see Pulp Fiction. You never seen Pulp Fiction? No. Embarrassing.
Really?
And Old School.
Do you have a phone on you?
No, I'm professional. I don't bring my phone to these things just in case it's wrong. So,
damn it. So he doesn't have the texting thing. John, you have any questions?
what do you need to know? Is this the emoji?
No, that's usually the last one we ask.
Oh, well, I use thumbs up a lot. I use the flexing muscle a lot. The winky face. I think I use the fire thing. And probably the laughing and crying one. There's 5 right there. I don't need my phone.
Knows him without his phone. That's pretty good.
There we go.
Is that
There we
the first
go.
time on the podcast? It's impressive.
Yes, that is pretty good. All right, so that wraps up the podcast, guys. Acceleration Fitness number 33. We'll be coming back at you next week. But before we go, guys, if you want to follow Brian, follow his Instagram page. He posts a lot of fitness content. And if you're in the Grand Rapids area, definitely hit him up for his boot camp. Brian, where can we find you at?
You go to BoudroBootcamp.com. All the stuff on the boot camp is there. And then on my Instagram and stuff like that, it's just my name. It's Brian Boudro. So,
John, you have any more questions before we go?
That's it.
All right, guys. Hey, let's have a great week. Next week is the final week of the Body Transformation Challenge at Xceleration Fitness.
Oh.
I'm expecting big numbers, guys. You guys have a great weekend. Go green and chase it.
Peace out.